Hello, in this video we will see how to do this bar chart, okay? As you can see here, we have a bar chart of the number of hours we have slept during the week, okay? On this x-axis, you can see that we have the weekdays, okay? From Monday to Sunday, okay? And here on this y-axis, you can see that we have the number of hours I've slept during the week, okay? So here, this is 0, this is 5, and the top is 10, okay? So as I said, we will see in this video how to do this bar chart, okay? So enough talking, let's dive into the code. Okay, here I have an empty project, okay? As you can see, we just have the initial project with an image and the text, okay? And here we have a finished app, okay? So what we want, the first thing we want to remove this vstack, okay? Let's remove it. And we want instead a chart. So let's add this chart. And what we want to do, we also want to import this chart. Okay, perfect. In order for our chart to work, what we need a list of data, okay? So because as you can see this content, we need a list of data. So let's come here, and for now let us just create this small list. So we will call it sleep data. And for the content for now, we can simply add 2 rows, okay? So the first one will be the date, okay? And the number of hours slept, we will say maybe 7, okay? Let me copy this and paste it again. And here we can simply change it to maybe 6. Okay, so now that we have this data, what we can do, we can simply copy this sleep data, okay? And inside our chart, what we can do, we can provide this data, okay? This list. So sleep data. Now we don't have an ID, so we need to provide an ID. And for the content, we can call it data. And now inside this chart, what we need a bar mark, okay? Because as you can see, here we are building a bar chart, okay? So we need something called a bar mark, okay? So let's do that, bar mark. And for the x-axis, what we want the date, okay? So let's do that, x. For the label key, what we want the name date. And now for data, what we want this date, okay? So how can we get this? We can simply get it from this data. And we want the first attribute, so this 0 will represent this date, okay? And for the y-axis, what we want is the number of hours slept, okay? So for the value, we can set it to hours of sleep. So for our key, we can set it to hours of sleep. And for the data, what we want to get this data, and we want to specify that we want the second argument, okay? So this one, okay? This 7 and this 6, okay? And here we have an error. Let us fix our errors. Okay, incorrect argument labels. Okay, oh, my bad. So here it's not capital X, and it's the same thing for this Y. And I think the error should go away. Let's see. And here it says expected this comma. Okay, here I also forgot this comma. So now normally our preview should work. And look at that, we have this chart, okay, with this bar mark, okay. But now what we want to do, instead of this data, what we want to do, we want a model, okay? We want to create a model where we'll specify that, okay, for each sleep data, what we want a date, and we want the number of hours slept, okay? So let's do that. Let's create a model. Okay, for a model, what we can do, we can simply come here, okay, before this content view, and we can add a model. We will call it sleep data. And we want it to conform to the identifiable protocol, okay? So let's do that. Okay, the first thing we need is this ID, okay? Because we don't want to provide the ID every time we create a sleep data, okay? So what I can do here, I can create my ID, and we can initialize it right away. So UI ID. The next thing we want is the date. And we also want the number of hours we slept, okay? So let hours of sleep. Okay, perfect. Now, the next thing we want to do, we want to add our initializer, okay? So for this sleep data, what we can do, we can create our init. But with this initializer, we have a problem, okay? Let me show you what's the problem. So when we create a sleep data, okay, what we want to do, we want to come here and create, for example, a data. If I come here, say let data, and I set it equal to sleep data. For the date, what we want to do here for the day, we want to simply provide something like this, like 2024. This is the year for the month January, and for the day maybe January, okay? So this date represents the first day of January 2024, okay? And for the hours slept, we can say maybe 7.0, okay? So if we provide this, you can see that we have an error, okay? Because you cannot convert this string into a date, okay? So what we want to do, inside this initializer, instead of setting this self date as this date, what we want to do, we want to change this, okay? When we initialize this sleep data, what we want to do, instead of providing a date, what we want to do is to provide a string, okay? And now, inside our initializer, what we can do, we can simply convert this string into a date, okay? How can we do that? Let's start by creating a formatter. And for the type, it's going to be a date formatter. So now that I have this formatter, I want to specify the date format, okay? So here, for this formatter, you can say that the date format is gonna to be, here, what do we have? You have the year first, okay? So let's put it. We have the year first, and then we have the month, okay? So this represents the month. So after this year, I can simply add this month, and here we have the day, okay? I can maybe change it to maybe the 31st, okay? So this 31st represents the day, okay? So here after the month, we have the day. Perfect. And now, instead of giving this date directly, because this is a string, so we cannot convert directly into a date. So what we can do, we can call this formatter, okay? And we can call the attribute date, and we want to get it this date from this string, okay? This, we want to get it from this, and I think we should be good to go. And now we have an error, value of optional type date must be unwrapped, okay? So this is simply because this can be null. So what we can do, we can simply click on this nullable, and in case it's null, what we can do, we can simply call this date that this time pass, and now everything should be okay. So now when we create an instance of this sleep data, we can simply pass this string, okay? And now it will come here and format a string to a date, okay? Now the next thing we want to do, instead of providing this sleep data, what we can do, we can maybe come here and copy this, and we can remove this. So now we need some mock data, okay? Because we don't want a single instance of this sleep data, okay? As you can see in the finish app, we have multiple instances of sleep data, okay? So what we want to do, we want to add some mock data. So let's do it. Okay, to save us some time, what I did, I simply added this off camera, okay? We simply provide multiple instances of this sleep data, okay? For the first day of January 2024, I slept for 6 hours and a half, okay? And I do the same for the whole week, okay? So now we can simply copy this sleep data week and provide it here. And because we already provided this ID, we don't need this ID anymore, so we can remove it. And normally the error should go away. And now it's complaining because of value of type sleep data has no member 0. Okay, here instead of this 0, what we want the date, okay? So let's add this date, okay? And we can even remove this data in. So let's remove it. And instead of data, what we can simply do, we can reference the object itself. So 0.date, and everything should be okay. And here is the same thing. Instead of this data, we can reference it to that 0. And the value we want is this hours of sleep, okay? So let me add this and remove out that one. And everything normally should be okay. Okay, let's wait for a preview. And you can see we have a chart. And each bar of this chart represents one instance of our variable, okay? Or mock data, okay? So the next thing we want to do, maybe we can add some style to this chart, okay? Okay, in order to style our chart, what we can do, we can come on this finished version of the app. And we can start by adding this, okay? Bar chart sleep hours, okay? How do we add this? To do that, what we can do, we can come on this chart, okay? And we can select it and do a right click, embed into an H tag. But here, instead of this H tag, what we want to do, we want to wrap it inside something called group box. And now inside our group box, we can provide a description. In our case, what we want to say bar chart sleep hours, okay? And as you can see, we have this bar chart sleep hours. And also in the finished version of the app, you can see that this chart doesn't take the whole screen, okay? So how do we do that? In order to do that, what we can do, first we can specify the frame of this group box, okay? So if I come on this group box, I can specify that I want a frame, okay? So let's add it frame. And for the height, we want it to be 500. Okay, perfect. Now we can see that our chart will only take, for the height, it will only take 500, okay? And now we can simply push it to the top, okay? So to push it to the top, what we can do, we can come here, right click, embed into a H tag. But here we want a V tag. And here after this group box, what we can do, we can simply add a spacer. Okay, and normally you're supposed to push it to the top, okay? And we also want a padding, okay? So on this V tag, what I can do, I can come here and add a padding. And yeah, I think it looks good. So now let us style the chart itself, okay? Because here on the finish app, as you can see on this x-axis, we have this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, okay? So we want to add this on the x-axis, and we also want to work on this y-axis, okay? So what we can do, we can start with the x-axis, okay? So let's do it. Okay, for our x-axis, what we want to do, we want to specify the exact date, okay? So we want to specify that the date, for example, for our first value, year 2024, January 1st, we want to specify that this date is a Monday, okay? Because if you check, the first day of January 2024 is a Monday. So how do we do that? How do we specify that, okay, the date we want to have this exact date? We want to get the name of that day, okay? So in order to do that, what we can do, we can come back on this chart, okay? So if I collapse this, we can add a property called chart x-axis, okay? So let me do that. Chart x-axis, okay? And yeah, what we want to do, we want to add something called axis marks. For the values, what we want to provide, we want to specify that we want it to be straight and we want it by day, okay? Okay, now what we want to do, we want to specify the label, okay? We want to specify for each stride, we want to specify a label, okay? So here, for each value inside this, we want to call axis value label, okay, to specify the label. So let's do that, axis value label. And for our format, we want it to be a weekday. So date time, that weekday. Okay, perfect. So normally with this code, we are supposed to see the date, okay? We are supposed to see the on this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, okay? Oops, my bad. Yeah, I forgot to specify that on this X, okay? We want to specify the unit, okay? So for the unit, we want to specify that it's going to be a day, okay? So now normally, okay, perfect. Now normally you can see that we have this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, okay? Now we get the exact name of our date, okay? So yeah, the last thing we want to do, maybe we want to center this, okay? Because as you can see, it's not center. This month is not center to this. So we can add this center and we want to set it to true. So normally now everything should be center. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see the difference, but each of them are now centered to this one, okay? So I think now we are done for this x-axis. Now let's focus on this y-axis. And for the y-axis, what we want, the first thing we don't want this to be on the right, okay? Because as you can see right now, our axis is on the right. So we want to put it to the left, okay? And, okay, doing that is going to be simple, as you might have guessed. Here, instead of this x-axis, we want a y-axis, okay? So here we can add this chart y-axis. And what we want to specify, we simply want to specify that we want our y-axis to be at the beginning of our chart, okay? So how do we do that? We can simply add this axis marks. And for the position, we can set it to that leading. And as you can see now, we have this at the leading, okay? The next thing we can do, we can change the color of our chart, okay? So here on this bar mark, what we can do, we can come here and specify the foreground style, okay? So that foreground style, and we want to change the color. And we want the orange color. And if I set orange, as you can see now, the color changed to orange, okay? And I think that's it. The last thing we want to do is to set the border, okay? We want to round the border, okay? So how do we do that? In order to do that, before this foreground style, what we can do, we can simply come here and add a clip shape. And for a clip shape, we want a rounded rectangle. And now we can specify the corner radius, okay? So here, corner radius. And for the value, you can play with the value. Let's put 20, okay? I think 20 looks good, okay? What do you guys think? Yeah, I think 20 looks good. If I set it to 25, yeah, 25 also looks good. So I think we are done. The very last thing we can add is this grid line. Let me show you. If I come on the Finish app and I zoom in, you can see that we have this grid line, okay? That we don't have on this app, okay? So how do we get this? In order to get this, what we can do, we can go back on this chart x-axis, okay? And before this axis mark, what we can do, we can add this axis grid line. And here we have an error. Static method build expression requires that axis grid line conform to. Okay. And here we simply added this to the wrong place. So let me cut this. Instead of adding this into this chart x-axis, what we want to do, we want to add it inside this axis marks. Okay. So after this value in, let me put this axis grid line. Now you can see that we have the green line. Okay. And we can also change the color. So here you can see that we have the red color. So how do we do that? Here we can simply specify the foreground color, and for the color we want it to be red, and now this is supposed to turn on red. And yeah, I think it looks good. The last thing we want to do is simply run our app, and this is the finished version of our app. Okay, we have a bar chart, okay, which represents the number of hours we have slept during a whole week. Okay, That's it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If that's the case, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.